In a land of myth and a time of... No, that's copyrighted, we can't use that.
Buddha, Brenda, Jessica, Susan, Scarlett, Buddha, papira, papa, scratadadidadada. The Lab of Awesome.
Arthur Pendragon is the son of Uther Pendragon, who was the King of England, whose base was in Camelot. And when Arthur was a baby, Merlin the wizard suggested he be taken away for safety purposes. He did not grow up with his father. Eventually, Uther dies and has no heir because nobody knows about Arthur. And there's a lot of dispute over who should become king, because it's a big deal. Somebody has to be the King of England. So Merlin casts a sword into a stone, and he puts an enchantment on it that only the true heir to the throne could pull it out. So many try, and they all fail. When Arthur was young, he had a tutor in his studies, which was Merlin, who would pass on a lot of his wisdom and turn him into animals to teach him things and make him very virtuous, and in a very roundabout way teach him how to be a great king, because he knew one day he would have to be. So eventually Arthur pulls the sword out of the stone, and he becomes the greatest king England has ever known. And he builds a very solid family of royals in Camelot. His castle is virtually impenetrable. He has the greatest knights you've ever seen, and they all sit at the round table because Arthur is so in touch with how to be a good king. They sit at a round table because he thinks no one should be at the head. They should all be equal. And for a really long time, which is Arthur's golden age, the knights and everybody, especially in Camelot, have the greatest life. A lot of his knights became very restless towards the end of his reign, and he sent them on a quest to find the Holy Grail. And only 3 of his knights, whose names I cannot remember, are actually worthy of actually finding the Holy Grail, and they did. Lancelot, who was on the quest with them, comes back a deeply religious person, which was very different. But for a long time, Lancelot had been attracted to Queen Guinevere, and they had a little bit of an affair, and that was just the ultimate betrayal. And they both knew, but for a long time they put it off, but it got to the point where they just couldn't take it anymore. But Lancelot went on this thing, and he came back religious, and that kind of allowed him to be stronger about it, and for a long time they didn't have their affair again. But eventually they did. And I don't remember if this was, I'm pretty sure this was before Arthur married Guinevere, but this other character, who, depending on where you looked, they could be 3 different characters, they could all be the same person. I think they're all the same person, but it depends where you look. Morgana, Morgause, Morgan Le Fay, whichever name you would like to give her, is Arthur's half-sister. Uther was her father. Arthur does not know that. And I believe it's before he married Guinevere, but he was seduced and tricked, essentially. He was tricked into sleeping with her. And incest is one of the, especially in this time, was one of the biggest sins. In Camelot, at least. She has a child named Mordred, and this child grows up, I think with witches or something. Well, Morgana / Morgause / Morgan Le Fay is a witch too, I think. And he grows up with nothing but evil, really, and resentment in his heart, because he was born out of deceit. He was not born out of love. Guinevere and Lancelot are back on their affair. The knights are really just they're so restless, even after going on the quest for the Holy Grail. And Mordred comes to the kingdom, saying, I'm your son, I would like to get to know you, and I would like to be here. And Arthur says, okay. And Mordred is in Camelot. And Mordred is really the beginning of the end. He finds out about Lancelot and Guinevere, and he tells the other knights. And Sir Gawain, who is a really close friend of Lancelot's, says, I don't want to be a part of this, because Arthur's also his uncle. So it's either betray my best friend or betray my uncle, and it's just a mess. He doesn't want to be a part of it at all. He doesn't want to believe it. But a couple of the other knights decide, okay, I'll help you. So they catch Lancelot and Guinevere in the act one night. And they capture Guinevere, but Lancelot, because he's such a skilled knight, he's the best knight, he fights them and gets away. And Arthur whether he's ignoring it or not is not really clear. We don't really know if he knew about it or not. But he can't ignore it anymore. They've been caught, and more than one person saw them. So he has no choice, whether he loves her or not, which he does. he has to burn her at the stake. He is a man of the law above all, and he cannot set an example for his people if he ignores it. But Lancelot saves Guinevere, I don't think they call her Gwen in the book, Guinevere, from being burned at the stake, and Arthur has no choice, he has to go after them. So he does. While he's gone, Mordred decides to take over the kingdom. So, on one side, he has to chase after Lancelot, even though he doesn't want to. On the other side, he has to go back, because he has to protect England. On his escape, Lancelot accidentally kills two of Gawain's brothers, so Gawain no longer considers him to be a friend, and he will stop at nothing to defend his family's honor and kill Lancelot. But Lancelot did it accidentally, he did not do it on purpose. And he will fight Gawain when Gawain comes to find him, but he would never hurt him enough to kill him because he couldn't bring himself to kill him. But eventually Gawain died of just the wounds he had anyway. Arthur then has two dreams. One, he is on this wheel of fortunes, and he falls off of it into a pit of snakes, which he sees as a really bad omen, which it is. And the other one, Sir Gawain comes to him and says, I know you're really worried about everything. You need to protect England and protect Camelot. Send word to Mordred to wait 30 days, and then you'll do battle. And if you send word to Lancelot, he will come help you, because you need him. So, he sends word to Lancelot, and then takes some of his men to go meet Mordred to say, listen, wait 30 days. And both sides, Mordred's side and Arthur's side, are told, this is what we're doing. We're here to agree to wait 30 days. Do not flinch. Do not draw your sword. If you do anything, there will be a battle. And it's not clear which side this happened on, but somebody saw a snake. And as soon as he reached for his sword, it was on. So there's this terrible, bloody, awful battle. And Arthur says, I have to do it. I can't let Camelot and England fall to this. So he spears Mordred with his sword. But Mordred whips around, and he delivers this fatal head wound to Arthur. Mordred falls to the ground, and he's dead, and Arthur is dying. And eventually the battle, there's really nobody left, except for one of Arthur's knights, basically. And he comes over to find his king on the ground with this fatal head wound, and Arthur says, you have to take my sword, and you have to throw it back into the lake. I have to return it. If you do not throw Excalibur back into the lake, I will strip you of your knighthood, and you will be shamed for the rest of your life. Throws it back, the Lady of the Lake, her hand comes up and catches it, she brandishes it 3 times, and brings it back down. He comes back and he tells Arthur, and the knight takes Arthur to this boat towards Avalon. Nobody knows where he's buried. However, Lancelot finally arrives, and he hears of the news that Mordred is dead, but so is Arthur. And Guinevere stayed in Camelot. But he goes to find Guinevere, because that would be his one saving grace. Even though we don't know where Arthur is buried, apparently Lancelot does, because it's said that he has buried Guinevere next to him. Lancelot, I think, 6 months later, he just dies of grief. He just can't handle what he did, or that his love is dead, or that his king and best friend is dead. He can't handle it. He dies of grief. And the Knights of the Round Table just kind of disperse. Everything just kind of falls apart. But it's said that because Arthur was the greatest king that England has ever and will ever know, if England ever needed him again, he would come back. You guys, I know this video is super long, and I'm sorry, and I know I'm going to get punished for going over 5 minutes, but when I suggested we do this week, I didn't realize how long it would take to spew out all the information about King Arthur, and there was just so much, and I couldn't cut it out, and it's just, ugh! So, yeah. I hope you enjoyed it though, so you can leave punishment suggestions in the comments for me, and Susan because her video was late, and Jessica because we never punished her. Okay, bye!